Hi everyone, I'm the Rambling Photon, and today I'm going to be talking about a form of dishonest argumentation that I find really annoying, but also really prevalent, and that is the Motte and Bailey. And I'm going to be going into a little bit more depth than I have in when I've mentioned it before. So, for those who have not heard the term, Motte and Bailey is a form of sort of medieval fortification. It's a defensive structure where you have the motte, which is a easily defensible citadel or castle or something similar. And then you have the bailey, which is the sort of outskirts, which is economically productive and useful and very hard to defend compared to the castle. And so the way that it would work is when your Motte and Bailey get attacked, you retreat from the bailey and then into the motte, which is easily defensible, and then launch all of your attacks onto your opponent who is occupying the bailey. So they can't hope to occupy the bailey for any extended period of time because you are defending it from the motte. Right, now, how does this analogy sort of transfer over into philosophical argumentation? Well, it's sort of a false equivalence, and it's a conflation of terms. So, put simply, your motte is the common and reasonable and preferred understanding of a particular term, and the bailey is your ideologically influenced understanding of a particular term. So, easy example, feminism. What is feminism? Well, it is the belief in equality of men and equal rights for men and women, right? Well, there aren't that many people that disagree with that. That is your motte. That is really easy to defend. If you're not a feminist, then clearly you're a sexist, right? And we've heard that before. Now, what is the bailey? The bailey, well, it depends on which type of feminism you're talking about, but the bailey could be patriarchy. The bailey could be rape culture. The bailey could be, all men are pigs. The bailey can be any number of things which reasonable people don't actually support, but then get conflated with what people do actually support. So it's a way of sort of a bait and switch, right? So the moment that you say, oh yeah, okay, I'm a feminist, well then you must agree with patriarchy theory, rape culture, and whatever other bullshit they're spouting. Okay? Now, they're not... Feminism isn't the only ones, aren't the only ones to do this. You also have religions doing something similar, where their motte is essentially arguing that physics can't explain everything and therefore God, or some variant of that. It could be... there must be a first mover, and physics can't explain the first mover. We're calling that first mover God. The bailey is that God is the Christian God, or the Jewish God, or the Islamic God. But that doesn't necessarily follow. It's sort of a non sequitur. There's this conflation between first mover and Christian God, right? So, while it could be a perfectly reasonable position and an extremely defensible position to say that there must exist some first cause in the universe, well, I can't argue against that. It seems sort of trivially true that there must have been some reason that the universe exists, right? Now, if we define that reason to be God, well, then I can't really argue against the existence of that God, but the existence or lack of disprovability of that God does not imply that any specific religion is true. So one case that I actually find kind of fascinating is when you can have an almost, it's mainly a two-way, but like you have two different groups using the same motte, but different Baileys. So The example that I'm thinking of is sort of, we get into like a tribal thing, right? So we have tribe A, tribe B, and just for shits and giggles, we have a tribe C here in green. Now, let's take some examples of some of the terminology that is used that is sort of the Motte, the easily defensible shared values of everybody, at least in the United States. Might not be true everywhere. Freedom, equality, and justice. Right? Good, solid principles. Now, those are the Motte. Those are really easy to defend in the sense that not many people are going to argue against freedom, right? Not many people are going to argue against equality. Not many people are going to argue against justice, because that's just stupid, right? Now, what do those terms actually mean? See, here is the Motte, freedom, equality, and justice. The Bailey is going to be the specifics of what kinds of freedoms you're talking about, what kinds of equality you're talking about, and what kinds of justice you're talking about. So, in the blue tribe, let's call them leftists, just, because it fits. Freedom might be freedom to services, right? Freedom is sort of free to do what you want and receive the treatment you want from who you want whenever you want, right? Equality might mean equality of outcome. Justice might end up getting broken down into social justice, climate justice, racial justice, this justice, that justice, right? Now, on the other side, sort of the conservative libertarian position, I'm not a huge fan of labeling it. I don't like the conflation of those two, but that's partly because the conservatives sort of steal all the rhetoric of libertarians and then don't act on it. But anyway, so the freedom in this camp might mean freedom from interference, as opposed to freedom to. The equality is equality of opportunity rather than equality of outcome. The justice is the justice for the individual rather than social justice or climate justice or whatever justice. It's just an individual justice. So, these are sort of two groups that are using freedom, equality, and justice to mean all sorts of different things. Now, if we want to pick another sort of actual three-way one, so going back to our religious example, so we have this prime first mover. There exists a prime first mover. Then you have the three Abrahamic traditions. Therefore, the Christian God. Therefore, the Islamic God, Allah. Therefore, the Jewish God, right? So we have three groups claiming the same Motte in some sense. Although I guess the Jewish camp tends not to be particularly outspoken in terms of the proselytizing, so I'm not sure I would consider them to be major movers in that particular debate. But in that case, we can say the two major camps are Islam and Christianity. Anyway, so you can have sort of a shared terminology in the middle that the sides are basically fighting over it. They're having this tug of war. They're trying to get the neutrals to think that those words mean what they say they mean. And so there's this tug of war on the connotations of these words in the middle. Because nobody is willing to attack the words themselves. Like, who hates freedom? Who hates equality? Who hates justice, right? So, and if you can effectively pull the Motte away from your opponent, essentially, you can use it against them. And so you'll see this, a lot of sort of liberals and leftists have done over the years, and Ben Shapiro, I think, makes a pretty decent point about it, is they attack the character of the folks, the conservatives, the libertarians on the who tend to be more on the right, by saying they hate poor people, right? So there's the conflation of supporting a welfare state with liking poor people, or somehow supporting them. And this is another Motte and Bailey, in a sense, where the Motte is caring about poor people, and the Bailey is all these welfare programs, right? Well, it turns out that if you like poor people, you don't necessarily need to support all these welfare programs. But that's not as easily explained. Anyway, so that's just me rambling about the Motte and Bailey, and some of how I think about it. And hopefully, if you see this used, you will call it out and tell whoever's trying to use the Motte and Bailey argument that it's a fallacy and a false conflation and a non sequitur and all that. And they shouldn't use it, and they should improve their arguments and actually defend the position that they hold. And also not try to use this Motte and Bailey as a way to covertly recruit people into the movement by saying, oh, well, you support the Motte, therefore you must support the Bailey. Anyway, if you like my content, like, share, subscribe, all that shit. I've been the Rambling Photon. Hope to catch you next time.